So when we went to spring training, I was out of options. You know, if you've been in baseball, you have options. After you run out of your third option, you're stuck, you're frozen in AAA. You're not in the major leagues. So I had to really show that I can pitch and I got to make this team. Otherwise, I'm frozen in AAA. I pitched real well. I pitched real well, but before I even get my first start, the pitchers are having a little, I didn't get to pitch in the first game. So the pitchers that didn't pitch in the first game, you go in the backfield and have a little game, you know what I mean? I remember sitting on the bench, and the game's over, the main game's over, so we got to cut this game out. And I remember Al Hahn go, I'm going for the downs. And he swung as hard as he could, and all I remember seeing is this bat, this little helicopter coming right at me. I go, oh no. The barrel of the bat hit me right on my shoulder. My arm swelled up. That's my pitching arm. I'm supposed to pitch the next day. Well, the next day, I couldn't even lift my arm. So the following day, Don McMahon goes, hey, you want to pitch or we give you another day? I go, I have to pitch. Because if I don't pitch, I'm frozen. Now, this is a great way, a good excuse to not pitch. Well, I went out there and I pitched. I went my 2 innings. I walked Willie McCovey because I said he ain't getting anything close. And I threw a lot of fork balls. So I got a lot of ground balls. Got out of it. And to do a jumping jack, my left arm would go up, this arm would not go up any higher than my shoulder. And Frank was keeping an eye on it, like, you okay? I go, well, it's loosening up, coach. It'll get there. Well, I kept pitching. And I kept throwing fork balls, and I had a great spring. And I made the team. Now, I was in tears because now I finally not get called up like I did the year before. I made the roster. I'm the opening day, one of the opening day players. So I was in tears when they announced my name and the national anthem. Here's my family there and everything. Yeah, 1981.
81, okay.
81 was my rookie year, but it was just phenomenal. It was like the dream came true. And that same year, what I recall is we went on strike.
I was going to say, but.
We went on strike. And we were in the middle of Chicago. They had we were just coming out of the hotel when we found out we're on strike. And they just started throwing luggages. Here's your baseball bag over there. Get your bag. Here's your luggage with all your clothes. Get it. You're on your own. Well, at the time, I was a pretty good partier. I had no money with me. Eddie Whitson had about $100. And we're going like, what the hell are we going to do now? You can't even go back to the hotel you were just in. It cost a hell of a lot more than that. So I called this girl that I knew, and we stayed at her place. And then the next morning, for some reason, Eddie goes, let's just go to the airport. I go, go to the airport for what? He goes, let's just go to the airport. Maybe I'll try to make some calls with agent or financial advisor or somebody and see if we get somebody to help us out. So we went to the airport and we're just drinking our beers and at that time smoking cigarettes and just all of a sudden Eddie just stops and looks down and goes, God damn, there he is. I go, who? It was his financial advisor was walking through at the time. And he just jumped out of his seat, get us on a plane to San Francisco right now. So the guy, oh, okay.
He had his checkbook or something.
He had his credit card and goes, yeah, get these 2 guys out to San Francisco. And that's how we got home. And it was like, welcome to the major leagues. All of a sudden, you're out of a job. Murph, the clubby with the Giants all these years, got me hooked up with some guy with the Teamsters Union. In '82, I came up and Frank was trying to turn the team around. Because that organization, it sucked at the time. It really did. It was just not a good organization. So Frank brought in Joe Morgan in '81. Then he brought in Reggie Smith in '82. And he was trying to get players. And that's when the papers in San Francisco came up with salt and pepper. Frank being black and Tom Haller being white. And before you know it, those two didn't get along. Because I think when Frank took over, Frank had the perception that I get to bring players in here and start turning this thing around. And that's basically going over Tom Haller's head. But after a while, that's when at the end of '82, they traded Joe Morgan, Al Holland. They would not re-sign Reggie Smith. And then the team went all to crap in '83, '84, '85, just went all to crap. But back to '82, we were doing okay. We were hanging in there. But to go to that level where we needed to be, I needed to get out of the bullpen and get in that starting rotation. And I told Frank that. I go, Frank, look, I could pitch better than what you got in that starting rotation. He goes, but in order to be a starter in the major leagues, you have to have 3 pitches. I said, okay. So I got Don McMahon, our pitching coach, and Don was the best pitching coach I ever had. He knew the game, he knew strategy, he knew about hitters, and he loved to study. Well, he told me, I go, Mac, let's go. I got to get a 3rd pitch. So I went down there, and Mac sits down on the ground to catch me. And I'm throwing this curveball, and it sucks. I threw maybe out of the...
Back to the old curveball.
Yeah,
again.
after about...
See if we can...
Out of 15 of them, maybe 2 were good. But I went in afterwards, I went into Frank's office, I go, hey, I got a curveball. And he looked at me like, really? I go, yeah. So I went over to my locker, and then all of a sudden I see him come out and get Don McMahon and calls Mac in. So I just go about my business. Mac comes out, looks over at me, shakes his head like, you're in. I got in that starting rotation, and I stayed in there. I was pitcher of the month for him in the month of September. Ended up doing really well. Lost a big game against the Dodgers. Rick Monday hit a grand slam off me in the 8th inning. Frank made the call to keep me in instead of bringing in Al Holland. And I went to apologize to Frank, and Frank goes, I made the call. I go, well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. But that basically knocked us out of the playoffs. So the next year, Tom Haller wanted to put me back in the bullpen. And Frank came to me and talked, goes, what do you want to do? I go, I'd rather be a starting pitcher. You're a starting pitcher. So right then, I'm in a rotation to stay, which ended up being great. And then again, like you just were talking to me about, it puts a lot of stress on your arm. Well, my last start, I was the first one in quite a few years there to pitch 200 innings. But I threw a pitch in Houston to Ray Knight, and I just threw 2 forkballs to him. Man, he couldn't touch the ball. And I remember just saying, break his frickin' bat. And I opened up. I tried to throw the ball so hard, I opened up, and it put all the strain on my arm. Well, I ended up tearing my labrum, because when I get the ball to throw it to first base, usually just pick it up and throw. Well, I couldn't do that. I was like, uh-oh, something's wrong. And I felt the pop. Well, I continued to pitch. That happened in, I think, the 2nd inning. I continued to go all the way to the 8th inning, shutout ball. But it's getting worse. And I'm telling the coach, I'm telling Herm Starrett, the pitching coach, who to me didn't know anything. I go, Herm, better get somebody up. My arm's not there. Eventually, I gave up back-to-back doubles in, I think it was the 9th inning, and then Greg Minton came in, shut the door down. I got the win, but my arm was hurting bad. So my next start was scheduled against Cincinnati. It was going to be my last start of the year. And that's when my agent goes, you're not pitching that game. For what, last place? See if you can stay out of last place? Forget it, shut it down. So we shut it down.